focusing on is looking at the end user here. The end user, and then the way that you get the potential product or technology that you might have to the end user. And then what do you do with that information when you've gathered it? How do you go about engaging the industry partners? So before we even sort of think about this, there's sort of some fundamental questions you have to think about. Why are we doing market research for starters? Why do you want to do that? You really have to think about what is the industry that you're competing in. Who's going to pay money for the product? The end user, who is that end user going to be? And then when you've got your product and how do you know it's going to be a winner? I mean, if you're doing something that's so disruptive, like iPhones, for instance, back when everyone had a flip phone, how did they know that was going to be a huge product? How much should it be? How much should you cost it at? How much should it be priced at when you're selling it? And then, how many of these things do you sell? That's obviously, some sort of revenue forecasting. So these are all really good considerations when you're starting to look at how big your market is, and whether you should even go down the path of commercializing or taking your product to the market. So let's consider why it's important. So market analysis is really one of the I guess the four cornerstones of the evaluation step here in the technology triage process at bluebox. So probably the biggest question you have to ask when you're going through taking a project forward is, why are we doing this? If there is no end user for your particular technology or product, there probably isn't a very good reason to continue with the project. No one's going to use it. So what we want to look at here is, like I said before, what applications are they going to be? What's the size of the market? We've got to consider where the markets might be. Are they in different countries, perhaps? What is the competitive advantage that your technology or product will have over existing technologies or other technologies that might be in the pipeline? And then who are the competitors out there that are potentially developing new products or ideas? And how does yours really stack up against those different things there? And what this all might lead you to understand is there might be competitors out there, but they could also be partners that you might want to consider approaching. And then hopefully, after you've done all this, you understand who your customers are, who your consumers or end users might be for your particular technology. So you really have to get a hold of all of these ideas when you're doing the market analysis. And like I said, if there's no market, then it's probably not a good idea to be continuing with the project. So where do we get all this market information? So obviously Google's a pretty good place to start. You might type in your technology idea or your technology domain, press market report, hit market report, and hey presto, you'll get a lot of hits against some sort of market information about your technology. So Google obviously links to all sorts of things like we're talking market reports here from specific market report generating services or companies like BCC Research, marketresearch.com, all those sorts of places. What these companies do is they generate specific market reports for industry sectors. They take existing information out there and compile it into documents that kind of make sense or give some historical information about what the market has done in the past, how it is now, and then forecast what might be happening in the future. You can also get information from conference abstracts. Sometimes people put information about how big the market is, and that's really useful. Patents can have information there. Publications definitely have information in the sort of biologics kind of domain. Nature reviews, whatever you want to say, they always have specific market information about very specific topics. These things come out all the time. Press releases from companies, very, very useful information. They often tell you about how big a market might be. But remember, with company websites and press releases, they're always generally going to talk about something that's positive, so it could be a little bit biased towards something that is, you know, a big opportunity or something like that. So if it doesn't exist in that sort of domain, it probably means that they're just probably not going to tell you about a not so great situation. And then obviously, probably the most awesome market information is actually doing it yourself, sitting down with people face to face, trying to understand what their specific needs are, and that's through surveys and focus groups, that sort of thing. So there's two types of market information. So first-hand data, the primary market information, that's the kind of face-to-face style ones. And secondary data is the market reports that you'd see online, that sort of thing. So primary market data, what's great about that is it's pretty much up to date. The person just told you that they want to buy a thing, or they're interested in a particular thing, or they have a problem about something. The downside about doing primary market research is it takes a lot of time to collect the data. Remember, you have to talk to a lot of people, and it can be expensive to collect. You might have to pay someone a couple of bucks or give them a cup of coffee just to get their market information. So, and if you need to talk to a couple of thousand people to get an idea of your market, that can be time-consuming and expensive. So obviously the secondary market information, much quicker, cheaper. I say cheaper, but sometimes these professional market reports can cost in the vicinity of a few $100s to maybe tens of thousands of dollars, depending on what the industry is or how detailed they are, or what the focus is of the thing. Probably around the sort of $500 mark to $2,000 mark is what I've seen in the market reports I've seen from those professional market reporting companies. So, all right, what I want to do for this particular session is we're just going to focus on a hypothetical case study called InstaChill. And guys, let me tell you now, the ice age is over. This is the coolest new packaging product on the planet. We're talking about here, it's a self-chilling packaging for the beverage market. What you can do is just press a button and you can take your beverage from ambient temperature to cool, and then it's really awesome to drink. So after many millions of dollars and lots of development, this is the product, it's kind of ready to go. So we need to know what the market is for this. So we're going to sort of think about how we're going to go about it. So what industries would we be competing in? One of the traps you can fall into is you're doing very specific research and you get focused in on one particular thing. If you've got something that might be very sort of platform, it can apply to a bunch of different industries, you need to be very mindful about what the bigger opportunities might be. You might be thinking it really only applies to this particular application, but really it could be the bigger opportunity might be on something over here. So you have to almost step back a little bit, just so that you're not falling into this trap of this tunnel vision. So how you do this is you really need to understand the players in the industry sector, knowing about the value chain all the way from the people that make the products all the way down to the consumer. And to do this, you need to map out the marketplace. So the best thing to do is start with those secondary sources that I talked about. And often these list a whole bunch of companies that are in the industry. These are really useful bits of information. And then what do? You need to think about, okay, who are the best people in these companies to talk to? Obviously, you're going to find a list of these companies that might be applicable to your technology. Then you might have a list of, say, 3 or 4 different companies that you want to talk to because they're the most relevant. They've got the deepest pockets. They're the ones that are in the sort of buy mode, buy now. We're looking for new technologies. So you need to find the right people within those companies to talk to. You know, if they're not interested, certainly you can ask those particular individuals for other contacts. They all talk to each other, they meet, they're at conferences all the time, they're interacting with each other on a social level, so it might be possible to get referrals to other contacts within different companies. And probably the best thing to do is ask lots of open-ended questions. When you're in the process of engaging with industry to sort of talk about your opportunity or your technology that you've got, probably the best outcome you can get if you don't get them to consider licensing your technology or helping you develop your technology is get some feedback on your technology. You know, is the technology, what's wrong with it? That can help you so much, because then you can look at your research and address the problems that they might have identified in your technology. So engaging with industry, I think that's probably what you should go for. Best outcome, some sort of contract or something like that, which may or may not take a really long time to do. Worst case scenario, get feedback on your technology. So let's go back to InstaChill. You know, what industries are we really looking at here? You can chime in any time. Obviously it's for beverages, but you know, what sort of beverages are we looking at here?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Is InstaChill a skin or is it a container?
No, it's...
Like, do I put my drink into
It could be
InstaChill?
both, it could be either.
And what is the length of chillness that InstaChill provides? You know, when I press the button,
Whatever you want.
whatever you want,
Yeah.
or does it depend on what's in the can?
Let's say within seconds.
But how long will it keep it cold? Does it then act as a fridge and it keeps it cold?
It just makes it cold. It doesn't...
It just makes it
So
cold.
you can drink it
Yeah.
when it's cold.
Okay. And what's the maximum temperature drop?
Let's say going from ambient temperature, so say you're in a desert.
What faculty are you from?
I'm creative.
Say you're in a desert and you want a kind of a chilled drink.
What's that?
So say you're in a desert and you want to go for a chilled drink,
Yes.
something that's clearly cold.
Uh-huh.
That's the kind of thing that we're aiming for here.
But will it make it a slushy?
No.
No. So it's just chilling it
Yeah.
long enough for me to drink it.
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, so do you want to have a shot at saying what kind of beverages we might be looking at here?
Yes.
Yes, I like that. So maybe alcoholic beverages might be good, you know, frosty cold beer with, you know, condensation dripping down the side, those sorts of images. That's fantastic, that sort of thing we're looking for. So obviously, who are the players in that industry? There's some very big companies in that industry. You know, you've got SAB Miller, they seem to have acquired a lot of brew houses around. There's probably, I think there's only 3 or 4 monster brew companies in the world. So maybe we should be looking at those guys, talking to those guys, or talking to, you know, specialty brewers under those particular family of companies. Say for instance, we were looking at the soft drink market. You know, we've talked a lot about Coke already, Coca-Cola, Amatil, PepsiCo as well. Just to give you a little bit of a backdrop, I saw that this technology was developed in the late 90s. They tried to use ozone depleting gases to do the cooling, and that obviously wasn't a great idea. So that died. They were actually at the point of getting very close to doing a deal with PepsiCo there. So obviously Pepsi's kind of interested in this sort of stuff. So they're great. You know, you've also got you know, energy drinks. Starbucks also make kind of iced coffee drinks. So there's lots of different beverage options there. So I guess probably what you want to be looking at is trying to pick someone who can give the best chance of you know, helping you commercialise the project. Yep.
Well, what about like the medical industry?
Yep, absolutely. Great. So the problem I could see, are there medications that need to be delivered cold?
Organs.
They need to be cold from the start, I think.
Drugs,
People.
heart surgery.
certainly worth exploring. So the other thing I was thinking is maybe this might be worthwhile placing in, say, the Department of Defence first. There's lots of soldiers that are, or military people stationed in kind of remote locations. If you needed money to develop the project further, maybe they're a good person to talk to further, because I'm sure they'd be interested in developing a product that could help deliver cold drinks to very happy, satisfied soldiers at the other end. You know, obviously you might want to be thinking about, maybe there's two different markets here. Maybe you go for something smaller first with a lower bar of entry, lower barrier to entry, but the bigger opportunity you always have to keep your eye on.
How about probably the biggest market in the world for this? That is the 2/3 of the world that doesn't have electricity. How about that? And the way that you would think about that market, presumably, would be very different to how you thought about selling it to beer-swilling Aussies. Just as an example, it's a totally different market.
So wouldn't this be a niche convenience product though? If you can't afford electricity, you're never going to get it.
What's your objective? One of your objectives might be to help the developing world, to help provide products that people can refrigerate and keep cool that they can't currently, and you're benefiting 2/3 of the world's population. Your view might be, well, stuff that, I don't care about that. I care more about making money, so I'm going to sell it to beer-swilling Australians and Americans. Depends what you're trying to achieve. Remember we talked about that before, it really depends on your objective. I'm just saying is the biggest market is probably not selling cooling beer. It's a different way of thinking about it. The biggest market probably, in terms of numbers, would be benefiting the 2/3 of the world's population that currently doesn't have a refrigerator or ice. Depends how you think about this. That's the only point. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I'm saying it's a different market.
Yeah, I guess probably setting expectations about what the success is the key thing there. So, who's going to pay money for the product? So who are your end users? So this whole mousetrap delusion, you can make a better mousetrap, but who's going to buy it when there's already a solution out there? So what this is really doing is you really need to focus in on the solution to the problem. If the problem is already being addressed by some other solution, maybe your market opportunity is not that fantastic. So probably the best way to get a handle on this is to do the primary market research, doing focus groups, that sort of thing. So again, talking about the problem. Something else that's really interesting is really understanding who is going to authorise the purchase of the technology or the product, the end product. So you might have this end user, but then they might not be the people that are actually buying the product. Probably a good example is some sort of medical device that you might want to place in a hospital. The patients are going to get the benefit of using that particular device, but really it might be the hospital that purchases the equipment because it might be too expensive, or the patients only use it for a very short period of time. So, who controls the purchasing of those? How are the budgets set for those particular entities? So these are the things you really need to understand here. So again, this feeds into really understanding the industry, understanding how the buying occurs, and really talking about who you can kind of talk to within those industries. So back to my medical device kind of analogy, you really need to have an understanding of the hospitals themselves or whatever it is, the buying people. So again, it comes back to face-to-face interaction. And to do this, you obviously need a bunch of guiding questions, and these might be in the form of a questionnaire or something like that. And what you really need to do is just be a very good listener and try and understand where the fundamental problem lies and how your technology might solve that problem. So obviously you start broad and you narrow down, and the themes you kind of want to explore are, really understanding the problem, who's going to be affected, and what solutions have been tried and where they fall down. Lots of questions, and just be a really good listener. So this is an example of a pattern that's out there, a bird diaper. It just seems kind of ridiculous when you think about it. Who's going to buy a product like this? So this is patenting for patenting's sake, as far as I can see. How many people actually have birds that sit on their shoulders and bird? I don't know. I just don't know how big this market is. It can't be that big because I don't think I've ever seen a bird wearing a diaper before. Anyway. So let's go back to the Institute. Who's going to pay for this? Who's going to pay for it?
Sorry, Tracy. Is the question who will pay to commercialise the product or who will buy the end product?
Either. You tell me what you want to address.
I don't know. It's your case study.
No, you tell me what you would like to address. Do you want to talk about who's going to take it on? And
Both.
You can talk about both if you want. Have a shot.
Oh, I'm not talking. I'm just asking questions.
I'll give it a good response. So ultra marathon runners who go out into the desert.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not cash poor. They have to pay for a high product.
Yeah. Very good. So how many people do you think that is?
I don't know the size.
Yeah. See.
Small market, but they're cash rich. So.
Yeah.
People who go to the beach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Consumers. So in the third world, how would you get people to pay for it? How would it work?
Who's the distributor of the product in those third world countries?
Yeah.
Any questions to ask?
Yeah.
How about the
Who
World
sells the most?
How about the World Health Organization, for example? Possibly.
Who distributes the most?
Yeah.
If we go back to our two things we were talking about before with alcohol and or soft drinks or that sort of product, and you mentioned Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola, the first question I had was, who distributes the most in the world to start with?
Yeah.
On a daily basis. That's when I want to start.
Yeah.
What you're talking about is understanding the value chain. And that's exactly what you've got to think about. Who is it and what would be their drivers? And there's multiple answers to this question, even in this simple example.
But what I would be cautious about with that is I also want to research and find out, if I go Coca-Cola or whatever, who is it that's producing their refrigerated product as it is now, because they're going to be not happy about that.
Exactly.
Yep.
So the consequences of introducing this technology.
Is it Coca-Cola, for example, that own all those fridges and or product, because then they're not going to buy it?
Yep.
Potentially.
See this
unless it's less to produce and run than their refrigerators as they run now.
They might buy the license and then silence it. So
Yeah. Pritchard steam car, that's what happened. That'd be before your time, remember that?
Yeah.
Oh.
So young.
There was a guy that developed a steam car, so we wouldn't have to use fuel anymore. The petrol companies bought it
Oh, really?
worldwide.
So I haven't heard of it.
Yeah. He made millions and it's never come to life.
But seriously, in all seriousness, understanding this in the value chain and who you're targeting it to and who is really important. That's the point of TINS. This, by the way, explains why we probably don't have a cure for malaria. Why? Where does malaria occur? Mostly in developing countries that can't pay the dollars required to justify the investment by pharmaceutical companies, which is why most of the work in malaria is being funded by people like Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. If this was a disease that was rampant in the USA, there'd be a cure for it now. I mean, it's just a fact of life, or more likely to be a prophylactic, simply because it'd be worth someone's effort to invest the money in research. This is understanding the market and explaining why it is. It's not right or wrong, it's just the way the world works.
So, do we have a winning product? So what we really need to do here is compare to what's already out there. So we launch our product on the market. how do we know that our product is going to be an absolute blockbuster compared to everything else there? So what you want to, how you'd really address this before you release it, again, you do focus groups with the product. You know, you'd be looking at comparing it to the competitors, and then, you know, does this meet expectations that the consumers need? Those sorts of things. Lots of surveys, lots of very focused questions about what you're doing with the product. Yeah. So there might be things in this that sort of, there could be considerations for things that can hinder the adoption by the customer, which you might not have thought of as well. Maybe for this particular situation, maybe it's just too hard to engage the button at the bottom, something like that, depending on how it works. So those kind of things you have to be thinking about. So like I said, you compare. You're really looking at the features, advantages, and benefits here. The benefit of the thing and what consequences does that have to the consumer, and who gets the benefit out of it. And we touched on this just before, what organisations might be impacted by the new innovation here. And then hopefully, if you've done that, you can sort of get some idea of what your value curve. So, do we have a winning product with Institute, or what do you guys think? Would you guys buy it? So, primary research.
It depends.
How much does it cost?
Say it's no different from, so in beer terms, we're talking 4x premium beer. That differential.
So
Would you
you
buy
make
it?
4x the same price as a premium beer by adding this onto it?
Yes, but remember, you're somewhere remote and you can just press a button and hey presto, you got your coffee.
It's 1 year's only.
Yeah.
I buy it instead of a big bag of ice sometimes.
Yeah. Sure. So we're probably going to impact the ice makers of the world, perhaps.
Maybe you could offer it to event organisers as a,
Exactly.
maybe have special events when they don't have much, there's no electricity where they are.
So this could be a classic, promotional kind of exercise, as well as, lots of promotional material you could attach to the bottom of it.
Camping and tramping.
Yeah, exactly.
I should qualify that. I wouldn't buy it if I knew it had ozone cleaning.
So the two examples that I've seen, there's one technology that's compressed air. You press a button and it somehow works that, so which I think sounds kind of dangerous. Or the other option is it's a vacuum. You press a button and it sucks air in and that kills. I think that's probably the safer version.
Is there an opportunity to sell some sort of external advertising space on the product?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking by promotional. There's lots of promotions companies around the world in the business of generating widgets and whatnot for events. You could certainly, they could be a great end user or buyer. Okay, so yeah, I think we might have a winning product here. So how do we just touched on this before, how do you gauge the price? How much should it be? Obviously, there's lots of things that are going to factor in here. How you set the prices is, look at what the market, look at what's out there, look at what people are actually paying for products right now. But really, how you want to set these things is you want to really look at how much it costs to make the thing, and then there's going to be lots of things like all these sort of things, and I guess marketing. Then you've got your distribution channel partners. How much do they need to get out of it? Profit margin objectives. Obviously that's all marketing. This competitor pricing and industry power. How are you going to get people to take this particular product over a regular beer that's warm? customer demand. So there's lots of things that you want to try and factor into this to really get an idea about how much it should be priced at. And you know, ultimately, it's really how much a consumer's going to pay for it in the end. There's obviously going to be price sensitivities about these sorts of things, so getting a really good understanding of that is so important. So, so what would you do about this particular product? How would you go about setting the price? Who would you talk to people first? You know, obviously, say for instance you've got Coca-Cola ready to go. They're lined up. What would you talk to them about in terms of the pricing? What kind of questions do you think you'd ask? They're probably going to know how much a...
I was just going to say, could you just slam use the door in the face, just chuck out like a really huge price and then see how much, like start the bargaining process.
That's one strategy.
We have to start with maybe a break-even point to start with, assuming a certain volume.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That's kind of your bottom line, and then...
Exactly, that's how I do it. Work out how much the very minimum, and then work up from there.
Would you also think about the variety of markets that you've got and maybe come up with a range of pricing models? So, for example, you might have a small market, or you might have a volume market. So Pepsi or Coke might be the volume market, and you would have some idea of how much your tolerances were within zones, or how much you were prepared to discount.
Exactly.
Because big boys would drive a hard bargain.
That's right. And back to this kind of cost of production, they might be able to manufacture it themselves. They might be able to make it for next to nothing when they're doing such a massive volume of it, more than what you could have done in Australia. So, setting the price that could completely change depending on where it gets made. So the cost of goods thing, I think, is probably the real important thing there. All right, thanks for that. That's really good. So estimating the demand of your product. So this is really about how many of these things you're actually going to sell over time, and how's the market going to change over time. So what plays heavily into this is if your technology is just a bit of an incremental improvement, or if it's a new to the world product, so much like a smartphone, as opposed to a mobile phone without an antenna. Okay, so that's my analogy there. Okay, so obviously with those two examples that I gave you, just for a second. So I'll just step back a bit. So thinking about these for an example, if you've got an incremental improvement, there's lots of market or sales data that you can access already about the market and how big it is and how many people actually use these kind of devices. But if you've got a real disruptive technology that hasn't really been tested, you're not really going to know how many people might actually adopt the new technology. So you could be sort of blue sky and say, hey, we're going to, possibly unrealistic, we're going to sell billions of these things, but it can be very difficult for a new to the world kind of product. So you want to look at multiple methods. You're talking about looking at the customers there, what the segments are, what are the size, what's really your addressable market. Who are the people that are really the ones that are going to use it. And then you're talking about what kind of growth the market might have over time. So for instance, with lots of markets, they talk about an increasing aging population. Is there a particular population that over time is going to increase in the market that you're particularly looking at? So those kind of population things, or maybe there's lots of people who are immigrating to a new particular country, so the population's increasing, or something like that. I'm just trying to think of examples. Segments being expanded, those sorts of things. So all these considerations you have to understand. So as I was talking about, incremental improvement technologies, you can really understand this quickly from purchasing a market report, or talking to suppliers and manufacturers and understanding what kind of sales they get. And this is very very sort of statistics. Things change from year to year. You can understand it pretty quickly. But new world products, really hard to get an idea what you might be looking at in terms of how your market changes. So rapid early sales are rare. That's probably what I want to. Like, you're not really going to know until probably a couple of years later how good it is. So what would you do? How would you estimate the demand for your product? How would you know that your trampers and hikers around the world, or your ultra-marathon runners, are going to take it up? I guess
Look at the opportunities for them to use the product.
Yeah, exactly. There's lots of festivals, music festivals in the US, in desert kind of environments. I think that's a perfect opportunity to test it out. Obviously, you want to get some information back on the product itself. So, promotional stand, lots of these drinks. Ask them a couple of questions at the end. How hard can it really be?
Make sure you've got a web address printed on the bottom.
Exactly. QR codes, all those sorts of things. I think it's could be easy. So I'll just skip through these last things quickly. So really, there's really 7 dimensions you want to capture in a market analysis. Size, the growth rate, the profitability, what kind of cost structure there is in terms of who gets paid what as the product goes from manufacturer to consumer, what kind of distribution channels there are around getting the product from the manufacturer to the consumer, what the trends are for the market, and what constitutes the success for that particular product. I won't go into the slides, they're actually in your notes. But yeah, they're the 7 dimensions you want to look at, and there's lots of ways that you can access information about the market or generating that information yourself. All right, so that's it from me.